Hello, this is Mrs. Pullen for Algebra 2, Lesson 1.05 on factoring trinomials where the leading coefficient is not 1. So let's start off with example number 5. Notice that the expression 6x squared minus 11x plus 3 is in standard form. That means that the exponents are decreasing in value from 2, 1, and 0. The leading coefficient is the coefficient attached to the x squared term, which in this case is 6, which does not equal 1. So there are a couple of ways that you can factor this. You can't use the regular sum product because a is not 1. So one way is trial and error. So it's really the opposite of multiplication, so you kind of reverse it. So the first thing you're going to set up is 2 parentheses. And then you say to yourself, well, what 2 things multiply out to 6x squared? Well, it could be 3x and 2x, or 6x and x. You don't have to reverse them because it's only really necessary when we're doing trial and error with that last term to reverse them. You don't have to look at that. So I'm going to try 3x and 2x. I typically choose the ones that are close together unless the middle term is really huge. I also notice that my last 2 terms have to multiply out to a positive 3. Well, if it's positive before the last term, I'm either going to have a plus plus or a minus minus. A positive times a positive is a positive, a negative times a negative is a positive. But I also notice that I need to sum to a negative, so a negative plus a negative is a negative, so we're going to want 2 negatives, whereas a positive plus a positive is a positive. Okay. In any case, so we know both of these are going to be negative in this case. And finally, we look at factors of 3. So it's either 1 and 3 or 3 and 1. As mentioned earlier, you're never going to have a common multiple within the same parenthesis. So in other words, like if I put 3 here, 3 goes into 3. So we know that's not a possibility, and I can cross that off. So I say, well, then it most likely is 1 and 3, but let's check it out. So we're going to multiply it out. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Minus 2x, 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x, and negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. And when I combine like terms, I get the original problem. So the answer is not the original problem, it is the factors. So the 3x minus 1 times 2x minus 3. But you certainly can check yourself if you have time. Okay, next, I want to do that same problem. So like, I guess I should move this there. I want to do the same problem, but what I want to do is use the split the middle technique. So what the split the middle technique does, it's similar to the regular sum product, but a couple of differences. So instead of like looking to multiply out to that last term, you're actually looking to multiply out to a times c. So in this case, the 6 times the 3 or the 18. And you still want to sum to a negative 11. So what are those factors? 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, and that's it. Well, which one, like if it's negative, they're both negative, which one adds to negative 11? This one. So with a split the middle technique, we're taking our original problem and we're literally splitting this. So it becomes 6x squared minus 2x minus 9x plus 3. And you could reverse the order of these. That's just how I did it. So now we're going to group. So we're going to factor out the first two terms and factor out the GCF in the second two terms. And so I'm going to factor out a 2x. And when I do that, I get 3x minus 1. Here I'm going to factor out a negative 3. And I'm left with 3x minus 1. We now have a common binomial. And we get 3x minus 1. And if I divide both terms, I would get 2x and then minus 3. And notice it's the same answer as before. So you could put the video on hold. I'm just going to clear this and go on to the next problem, and you can join me when you're ready. Okay, number 6. I want to do this problem both ways. So we're going to first try trial and error. So that first term is 4x, which you can get by going 4x and x, or 2x and 2x. And I don't remember the answer to this problem, so I'm going to start with 2x and 2x. To get to negative 27, it could be 1 and 27, 27 and 3. With the last term, you have to reverse the order. 27 and 1, 9 and 3, 3 and 9, and that's it. It doesn't look like I can reduce anything, but I can logically say it's probably not going to be a 27 in this parentheses because the middle term is not huge. Okay, so it's not this. And most likely it's not this. So it's either 9 and 3 or 3 and 9. So if I did 9 and 3, that would be, and I'm going to have one positive, one negative, right? Because you have to have a positive and a negative make a negative. I get 18x. And then that's the nose. The smile is negative 6x. And so that's negative 22x. So that doesn't work. So it most likely isn't 2x and 2x. So I cross that off. So let's try 4x and x. And now the last term has to multiply out to 27. So that's 1 and 9, 3 and 9, 9 and 3, and 27 and 1, and 1 and 27. So there's nothing I can reduce out. So I'm going to try the 3 and the 9. I know because that last term has a negative, I have to have a positive and negative. And you could just keep on trial and erroring, doing trial and error. But what I like doing is I like finding what the product of my inner and the product of my outer are, the OI. So this is 3x and this is 36x. I know I'm going to have one positive and one negative. Well, how do you know which one? Well, I need my middle term that the product of the inner and the outer has to add to a negative number. That means I have to have a larger negative product. So that means that this one has to be negative and this one has to be positive. So that's positive 3x, negative 36x adds to negative 33x, which is what we want. So this takes some time getting used to, but actually, like once you get used to it, it's a fairly easy process, especially with problems like in the prior page where everything was prime, like number 1, trial and error is much simpler. But there's another technique that we went over in problem 5 and went over in class that I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to do that same problem using it, and that's called the split the middle technique. It's a modification of the sum product. So first of all, when you do that x gain, we're looking, that top is A times C. So it's 4 times, and don't lose your negatives, 4 times negative 27, and that's negative 108. And it has to sum to the middle term of negative 33. So notice it's starting off the same way. So what are those factors? 1 and 108, 2 and 54, 3 and 36. Hold on. Yep. 4 goes into it, I believe. Yep, 27. 5 doesn't go into it. 6 goes into it. 7 doesn't go into it. 8 doesn't go into it, but 9 should go into it. And that's 12 times. Okay. We know that the signs have to be different within the parenthesis. How do I know that? Because there's a negative before the last term. So like here, the signs are going to be different in the parentheses because there's a negative before the last term, whereas number 7 and number 5, they have a positive before the last term, so both signs are the same. Okay, so getting back to the problem, which I want to end up with a negative 33, and I know I have a negative 108. That means the signs are different, and the larger number is going to take the negative. So that helps. So which one gives a negative 33, 3, and negative 36? So I rewrite the first term, and then I'm going to divide the negative 33 to positive 3 minus 36x minus 27. I combine like terms. I get x times 4. I factor out the GCF of x. Here I factor out the GCF of 3. Actually, 9 goes into both, and you don't want that negative. So 36 divided by negative 9 is 4x. Negative 27 divided by negative 9 is positive 3. We're almost done. And so now I can factor out the common factor of 4x plus 3, and I'm left with x minus 9. And those are the factors. So this process, that split the middle process, gives you the answer in a very systematic way, but it does, it does take some time to do it, and hopefully you'll try both methods and find the one you like best. I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.